This is a review on paragraph organization and verbal phrases. For number 1, to make this paragraph most logical, sentence 6 should be placed. The key word here was they. Pronouns are often great clues as to where sentences should go within a paragraph, and here they has to refer back to an antecedent. So the only they that is now able to perform millions of calculations within seconds, machines, after sentence 1. Number 3, to make this paragraph most logical, sentence 5 should be placed. The key word in sentence 5 is again a pronoun, it. And we look elsewhere in the paragraph to see what it could refer back to. So what is extremely heavy and too heavy to lift? It goes back to a weighty piece of machinery, which was in sentence 3. So the pronoun goes after that, D. For number 4, to make this paragraph most logical, sentence 5 should be placed. So sentence 5 introduces the Duke, and then in sentence 3, he could not be pursued by the prince's soldiers once he was there, referring back to the Duke. So C after sentence 2 was correct. For number 5, to make this paragraph most logical, sentence 5 should be placed where it is now. These two sentences, 4 and 5, form a nice contrast. We can't know what we do know, and should be next to each other. Number 6, to make this paragraph most logical, sentence 1 should be placed. The key idea in sentence 1 was this pretty general noun, the city, which referred back to the city of Los Angeles. So it should belong after sentence 4. For number 7, to make this paragraph most logical, sentence 5 should be placed. In sentence 5, they introduced the idea that coffee was becoming more and more popular overseas. And then in sentence 3, they referred back to it. The renewed taste for coffee elsewhere meant. So it is a support sentence for this lead sentence, which means 5 should be right before 3. In other words, after sentence 2. Number 8, to make this paragraph most logical, sentence 5 should be placed. Sentence 5 is about achieving victory with style or winning with flair and how it's the only way to win, which supports the idea introduced in sentence 1 of scoring without the right aesthetic is frowned upon. And then sentence 2, a coach disagrees with this statement that is provided in sentence 5. So it belongs between sentence 1 and sentence 2. Choice was B. To make this paragraph most logical, sentence 5 should be placed. And the clue here was actually in sentence 4. That demonstrative pronoun, this, referring to this vital physical clue, refers back to the magnetized rock mentioned in sentence 5. So D after sentence 3 was correct. Number 10. Where is the most logical place in this paragraph to add the following sentence? This lack of movement, the demonstrative pronoun this, is the key idea. It refers back to, from sentence 4, staying in the same place. That is the lack of movement we're referring to. So D after sentence 4 is the right answer. Number 11. This sentence, there's two major clues. Number 11, there's two major clues here. First of all, in sentence 4, one such merchant refers back to the merchants in this sentence, so it should be before sentence 4. And secondly, in sentence 3, they describe the ships that could deliver their cargo the fastest could charge the highest prices. And then we build on that by saying merchants were willing to invest in building the sleekest ships to compete. Since we've established which type of ships can charge the most, it should follow that sentence, sentence 3, so it's C. For 12, sentence 5 should remain where it is now. The pronoun they in sentence 6 refers back to the hydrocarbons in sentence 5. For 13, this sentence should follow sentence 1, because this general noun, the drug, refers back to chlorphenamine maleate. In the next one, sentence 4 should be placed after sentence 8, because sentence 8 asks a question, and sentence 4 tells us the answer to it. So it's about chronology. In 15, this new sentence should go after sentence 2, because this noun, the project, is referring back to crafting the tomb of Lorenzo de Medici. So sentence 5 should be placed after sentence 3. It's introduced with this idea of a dark side, which previews that invaders are conquering lands. And Secondly, in sentence 4, it says the people have not surrendered so easily. Well, who did they not surrender to? We don't know unless sentence 5 comes first. They did not surrender easily to the invaders. In sentence 5 here, however, is the key transition. So if molasses are obtained from each are somewhat different, we want the opposite in the sentence prior, such as it being impossible to differentiate between cane or beet sugar. So it belongs after sentence 1. Sentence 5 should be placed in front of sentence 3, because sentence 3 abruptly introduces "but Narcissus." And in fact, it's not supposed to introduce, it's supposed to refer back to sentence 5, which is the lead sentence. In this next sentence, northern fur seals explains what sea creature was being introduced in sentence number 1. And additionally, in sentence 2 and onward, when we talk about male and females, we're referring to male and females seals. For this next one, sentence 4 introduces the idea that Dickens' childhood was unpleasant. And in this new sentence, we're describing what that childhood experience was. And then in sentence 5, we see this key demonstrative pronoun those, and those times is referring back to this description. So see after sentence 4. In the next one, in sentence 3, the pronoun they is referring to the ships of Great Britain. So this one should be after sentence 2, which is before sentence 3. For number 7, sentence 5 should be placed at the beginning of the paragraph. So the original topic sentence here didn't make sense, it was confusing. And placing sentence 5 there introduces the topic of the overall paragraph, which is kettlebell training. And it also introduces ideas of tension and relaxation, which are described in the subsequent sentences. Sentence 5 here describes timbers that were once the finest in the world, which should be placed before sentence 4, because sentence 4 describes how these trees lost their fame. They were stolen and taken abroad, which ended the monopoly. So sentence 5 is a lead sentence for the supporting sentence 4. For number 9, its hunting instinct is referring back to the cat. ITS, the pronoun, referring to the cat. So it should be after sentence 3. In addition, in sentence 4, they talk about catching mice and rodents, which speaks to hunting instincts. For number 10, sentence 5 here is a good conclusion sentence. It refers back to things said throughout the entire paragraph, this process being the key word. And pasteurization, still bearing his name to this day, had to come after sentence 2. And heating a liquid very rapidly and the microorganisms being killed were the process that we are referring back to. So where it is now is the correct answer. For number 11, this sentence should be added after sentence 1, because in sentence 2, compared to the latest designs, those older models, the demonstrative pronoun those is referring back to the early versions mentioned in this new sentence. So it should come before 2, or in other words, after 1. For number 12, the key detail was this noun both instruments in sentence 3. It should refer back to the flute and the three-holed pipe, which means this sentence would have to come first, so after sentence 2 is the right answer. For number 13, rock at the end of sentence 2 is further mentioned in sentence 5, and then at the end of sentence 5, finer and finer pieces are formed is referred back to with this phrase, these particles. So a lead sentence talking about rock, some supporting details, and a demonstrative pronoun referring back to a previous sentence after sentence 2. For number 14, in sentence 5, they mention the 6th century BC. And then in sentence 2, they refer back to this with the phrase around that time. So sentence 5 should be after sentence 1 and before sentence 2. For 15, this division in sentence 5 refers back to cells that can be replaced do so by splitting in 2. So this has to be in front of sentence 5, B, after sentence 4. In number 1, sentence 6 starts with if a hall. cannot be found, which refers back to finding a narrow hallway in sentence 3. In number 2, sentence 4 mentions all of these different buildings that the sun can give off enough energy to power, like houses or office buildings or schools. Then we mentioned solar power buildings again and describe them further. Support that by saying they can even be very large. So sentence 4 here should be after sentence 5. For number 3, sentence 2 should follow sentence 5. Sentence 5 introduces this idea of using rice to ferment and preserve fish. And then we see initially rice was only used to help start the fermenting process, and we see how it's different from that previous statement. Sentence 4 belongs where it is now. Hopper's second compiler should come after she invented her first compiler. That's the correct order. Next up, for verbal phrases, we're looking at 3 different types. The first, participles and participle phrases. That's when a verb form acts like an adjective instead of a verb. It's modifying something. So, twisting, as in a twisting road, is a participle. In the present tense, these verbs end in an ing. In the past tense, often in an ed. They include the complements and modifiers to make the whole participle phrase, and they can be at different points in the sentence. Sometimes commas provide clues that we're looking at a modifier, such as smiling at Molly, Carla, or Carla worried about the tryouts. In other situations, celebrated is describing kicker, determined is describing the pacing, and holding the tryouts is describing the coaches. Or relieved is describing a particular sigh. If done correctly, these participles or participle phrases have verb forms ending in ed or ing typically that are right next to the noun they are describing. A gerund is a verb form, also ending in ing, that functions as a noun, and that can also include any complements or modifiers to be a phrase. And we see it here, her enthusiastic cheering functioning as a subject, her moving the chair or sewing, all of those working as subjects. It can also function as a noun that describes what Miranda enjoyed or what her greatest hope was. These are all gerunds or gerund phrases. Notice the ings. And the last verbal or verbal phrase is an infinitive. And that is a verb form that's almost always preceded by the word to. In this case, to is not a preposition, but it's part of the infinitive verb form. It can be a noun, an adjective, or an adverb, as in, I love to gather flowers in the spring. Our plans to visit Civil War battlefields changed drastically. Or your address is difficult to remember. These infinitive phrases can function as the subject, such as to be shy is, to sleep late is, to perform in the choir is, to knock down the toy clowns was, or as the complement. My grandfather loves what? To ride his bicycle. Or the children like what? Or Katie likes what? And in all of those cases, it begins with an infinitive verb form and all of the modifiers and complements that come with it. Infinitives also can describe verbs or nouns. So describing verbs, they might answer why someone went to St. James, or down here, why someone went to Hatchard's on Piccadilly. Or they might describe that there's a character to write about being Lord Nelson, or Mayfair as the place to be, or Jane Austen as the author to read.